Welcome to the Assisted Living Network podcast. I'm Isabelle Guarino, your host, and I am so excited to introduce you to one of our amazing students from the RAL Academy, Ben Dickey. Ben owns an amazing care home, Legacy Senior Care, out in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. He's serving seniors, helping others get started in his community, and him and his wife have really created an authentic and a really magical place for these seniors to age and get the quality care that they deserve. We're going to dive into what it looks like to start the home and really how you can get to that more hands-off model. Ben's got systems and he runs his care home like a true business, not just a hobby or, somewhere that you live and work. It's a business. I can't wait for us to dive in right now. So help me welcome to the show, Mr. Ben Dickey. In the United States right now, there are 76 million baby boomers. The number one dilemma for these baby boomers? Housing. That dilemma can be your opportunity. Welcome to the Assisted Living Network podcast, where you can discover how just one residential assisted living home could secure your financial future forever. So welcome to the show, Ben. I am so excited that you're here. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
I want to dive into your care homes out in Oklahoma City, Legacy. Let's talk about time dedication. So what did this look like? How much time, in the beginning did you spend on this? And then how much time now that your homes have been up and running for a minute are you spending in or on the care homes?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a framework and it's all about systems. So when we opened our first home, that was in July of 2023.
Okay.
And I would say that was mostly survival mode, especially. Yep. So it's myself and my wife, Katie Dickey, and she spent a lot of her time just making sure that everything was working.
Yeah.
Now we use a framework that, and we've hired a team along the way, where when we first opened, we didn't have an LPN. We staffed up with an LPN and things like that. So now, when we started, I would say we were working 80 hours a week, but we've trimmed that down to where now she's working and in kind of two different categories. So like phase one is the stuff that is easier to delegate. And that's the stuff like the tasks, the maintenance activities, stuff like that. That's all delegated. The team does it and that works. And there's a lot less follow-up on that now that we've gotten better at managing the systems and the framework for doing it.
Yeah.
The items that are harder to delegate that we believe really drive the quality of care are things like making adjustments to the medications, getting the food and the nutrition dialed in. So we're still very hands-on with menus and optimizing and customizing the menus to resident preferences, making sure the food that we buy is really high quality ingredients. We take a lot of pride in trying to reduce spikes in sugar with the diet. And so we pay very close attention to little details like that we think helps the residents' overall length of stay and just overall health. And so anyways, for the items kind of in our phase one bucket, Katie's now spending about 20 to 30 hours a week in the home. And I'll walk through kind of how we divide up all the things that need to happen in the business. Because we divide those across 5 pillars. But Katie spends about 20 to 30 hours a week following up with the team, making sure that the activities are happening as they should. And then we spend another 20 hours or so kind of working on the business as far as hiring teams, building systems, documenting what does done and success look like and things like that.
That's amazing. What's the vision? Like, where do you guys want to be in another, 3 years? Are you hoping to decrease that, or do you like the level of participation because this is where you find fulfillment and you enjoy that role for yourself?
I think the way that we see it is we want it to operate like a business. So we want to be involved and seen and recognized in the business and in the community. Mm-hmm. And we don't want to shy away from that.
Yeah.
But we want it to be where we are managing rather than responsible for the specific activities.
Yeah.
And we've got some growth goals where we know that we're going to be working on the business and growing the business significantly over the next 5 years. But the level of involvement at the home level, we're building that foundation now to where a year from now, these two homes will run essentially with a manager very much on their own, and then we'll be managing the outcomes, on a weekly, monthly basis, checking in and making sure that we're checking in with the families and working with them.
I think the beautiful thing about this industry is you can be as involved or not involved as you want to be, and it does come down to what you mentioned. It's the systems, it's the processes. So you guys taking the time to really put your thumbprint on it, put your style on it. This is how we want things done. We're paying such close attention down to the smallest things so that we know when we do hire out and when it becomes more, hands off, they're going to do it that way because we've set it up so that they can't fail. All they've got to do is follow the process, follow the steps. So I love that. And that's awesome. What would you say is your primary role in the home right now?
So my primary role, and the way we divide things up, we divide them up across 5 pillars. And those 5 pillars are marketing, sales, and what I call product service. And then we've got back office, and then we've got basically R&D. And so my job is really to lead from a strategy, a vision perspective. I manage the financial outcomes to make sure the operations of the business achieve the financial results, and what adjustments do we need to make if we're not hitting those results, and then just recruiting great folks and making sure that we're driving our culture, our vision, and our values.
I love that you are running it such like a business, like you said, like it truly is. And that is amazing because we know that much of this industry is run by people who are living in the home or working in the home or doing a lot of the care themselves. They're not running it like a professional business owner. So I think that this is going to give you guys a lot more longevity, and it's exciting to hear and see that.
Yeah.
I want to hear about, the timeline. I know you guys came to the RAL Academy 3-day training and, learned those first steps to take. But from leaving there, how long did it take to get your home up and running, and what obstacles did you have along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. So the RAL Academy was a huge part of our success. I mean, we had heard about Rolla, and then going there and actually seeing it, touching it, feeling it, and meeting folks that were actually doing it was really transformative, and it's probably what pushed us to actually take move the meter from idea to action. And we went to the Rolla Academy in October of 2019. It actually took us about 3 years to get our first home up and running. I think along the way, some of the challenges that we faced were we had to learn. I was coming at this from a background of a real estate investor, so I'd been investing in real estate. We'd been building a portfolio of real estate, but I have a full-time job, and I did to both provide for the family, and that's where I started my career out of college. And so I had to get out of the mindset of how do I do it to the right mindset of how do I lead and build a team, and then work on that so that we could actually get the right folks, the right team assembled to go do something that was not common in our area. And I think that was the inspiring thing of coming to the 3-day academy, was there was so many folks that were actually doing this thing and operating these businesses and doing good and doing well. And so by going out there, it was not common here. And so there was a lot that we had to do as far as educating the city, working through local ordinances and the laws, and aligning with the laws with the Department of Health, just to make sure that we could get our home licensed.
Yep.
And so we spent a lot of time and with our counselors, with getting on the phone with the coaches at the Rolla Academy, and just kind of working through the blocking and tackling of that.
Yeah.
And so we originally were going to buy a house and basically build a residential assisted living from the ground up.
Yeah.
And what we learned along the way was we really needed to build the team and get some experience. And so we ended up buying 2 houses that had already been converted. And then we got those operational. And then we came back to the development side of it.
Wow. You know, there's so many amazing nuggets you just said right there. But truly, I think that's what happens. Sometimes you come in with this vision of what you think it's going to be, and it shifts and it changes, and you have to be open to opportunities. And you decided to move forward in your market. You know, many people might say, oh, my market's challenging. I hit a roadblock. Let me just change markets completely and go somewhere else. You guys said, you know, this is where we live. This is where we know, and this is our community. Let's figure this out, even if we are one of the first people to figure it out, because there's going to be more to come. And I know you've helped others now by, you know, running the Oklahoma RIA there for RAL's owners. And that's probably been, you know, beneficial to you as well, because I know when I teach, I'm learning along the way with them. And so I don't know if you feel the same way with that, but helping others get through those struggles is so big.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's where the mindset is really important, because one, it's sort of having the mindset of abundance and asking how can I, and focusing on how far you've come and not what hasn't happened. I think is something that's really, really crucial. Yep. And the second piece is exactly like you said, instead of looking for reasons why you can't, because like the average rates here in Oklahoma and Oklahoma City are actually not really that high. So it would be really easy to go and kind of do the first surface level analysis and say, oh, we could never make this work. But just continuing to get on the phone with the coaches at the Rolla Academy, expanding our network and our team and finding the right folks. We just kept asking the question, how can we? And we did. We started a local meetup here in Oklahoma City back in 2022 because, you know, we'd identified that there was 2 local residential assisted living homes, but they were very kind of close vest as far as like sharing information. They didn't want to have any visitors. And things like that. And we just knew that there was such a demand for assisted living, and that there was a lot of families looking for alternatives. And so we just started pulling folks together to talk about the concept, and it's really been transformative in helping us move forward and get our projects going faster. And so it's been a real blessing.
I love that. Let's talk about staffing, because I know you mentioned you kind of said it without saying it. It's about the who, not the how. Instead of asking, you know, how can I do this? It's like, okay, who can do this? Who can I outsource this to? Have you made any big hiring mistakes that you're like, oh, we learned from that one?
Yeah, when we first opened, it actually was very unclear to us. Like, did we need a nurse? Did we need a nurse consultant? Did we need an LPN? All of that. And we tried, you know, it's one thing to have an idea of how something's going to work, and then, you know, what actually happens tends to be the real lesson. And so we hired an LPN who on paper looked like she had a bunch of great experience and stuff like that. And she was a good person. There was nothing, you know, wrong with her as a person. But it just turned out that she didn't have the mentality of actually wanting to help the residents. She just wanted to sit behind a desk all day. And so one of the things that we had to stay persistent with was both hiring caregivers, and I will say that there are some challenges in finding good caregivers and building a consistent team just for the residents, the family, and the overall experience of the home. But then the second piece was finding a good nurse consultant and a good LPN and getting the order of those hires right. And so what we learned is that we ended up having to let that LPN go just because she she wasn't as hands-on enough with the residents, and she wasn't supportive of the team, and it was causing some culture issues. So we just had to move on. We ended up hiring a nurse consultant that had a lot of experience in the industry, and she was very, very helpful, encouraging. She was hands-on. She worked with the CNAs and the other team. And then we came back and we interviewed a lot of LPNs, and we finally found the right LPN. And then we hired the LPN after we got a lot of the systems and the culture kind of embedded into the ecosystem.
That's awesome. It's so important to take those right steps and just, as they say, hire slow and fire fast when it's not the right fit. Culture is what you tolerate. And if you're going to allow things to go on that aren't right and it isn't the culture you want to create in the home, you've got to just nip it in the bud. So I love that you guys made that decision and got your, consultant so you could make that right decision going forward.
Well, and what I would say too is we think in terms of, we use a little acronym that some may be familiar with, some may not be, but we call it like a RACI, and it's responsible, accountable, consented, and informed. Mm-hmm. And so we tried to be real clear on what the behaviors are needed for a particular role. And then we kind of phase things in. So we work real hard at looking at what are the behaviors that we're looking for, and does this individual align with our core values? Mm-hmm. And then if we get those two things right, we know that we can train on the scope and sequence of how things will work. And then we really focused on what's the resident and the family's experience at first. And then as we got that, and there's always something to do, but as we got that, then we started working on some of the other functions that affects the resident and the family experience, but it's not as immediate facing as like when they walk in the home. And things like that are just the marketing, the back office and stuff like that. And so, it was really focused in a very intentional way on the things that were most impactful to the resident and the family experience. And then as we got that, not necessarily perfect, but aligned with our mission, vision, and values, then we could then start working on some of those other areas.
Yep. Hey, it's Isabelle from the Assisted Living Network. And if you're still curious about how to get started and what are the first steps to take to open your first residential assisted living home, then I'm going to encourage you to click the show notes and grab a ticket to our boot camp training. Not only is it easy to digest, but it also will give you the basics you need to determine if this is the right fit for you. Doing good and doing well is what we're all about, and I want to invite you to join us on that journey by diving into our boot camp training. So click the link and enjoy the learning. Now, back to the show.
I have to give kudos to both you and Katie, because I think that you guys just really shine in your authenticity and vulnerability in this industry, always sharing with people your wins, your struggles, like what you're going through. It's never just, all rainbows and sunshines. You guys are really honest about what this industry is like. And I love that every time that we chat, you'll say, hey, this is going great, but this is where we're struggling. What can we do? How can we help that? And so I want to thank you for that, because I think it's really important for people to hear and understand all that's involved, the pros and the cons equally. And so, where can people find more information if they want to learn more about your care homes?
Yeah, so they can go out to www.legacyseniorhomes.com. And I think if you Google it, you should just be able to get to Legacy Senior Homes. But if you go to www.legacyseniorhomes.com, there's a lot of great resources out there. We've got a 3D map of the home, and they can do a little 3D tour, if you will, or get an experience of what it's like to actually be in the home. And then we've got some assessments out there where folks can get more information about if assisted living's right for you, or maybe home care or a different level of care. And there's a lot of great resources, and then just some information for families on the move-in process and what to expect as they're trying to navigate this phase of their life.
It's so important. We'll drop that link in the show notes so you guys can click it and go check out Ben and Katie's beautiful home. Before we wrap up today, I want to have you share with the listeners what would be your best piece of advice for someone who's getting started and just getting into this industry.
Yeah, I think the best piece of advice that I can give folks is, one, just go into it with a really humble and open mind and figure out you've got to really work on your mindset and building a team. And so I think a lot of folks come into this industry and just want to know, like, hey, give me the 10 steps to open my home or something like that. And I'd really encourage them to focusing on the education side of it. And then as they gain the education and the experience, then they can start working on assembling the team of what they need to complement their God-given abilities and skills so that they can assemble the right team to augment the things that they're good at to make sure that they're covering the areas where they may need some help. And so I think by focusing on just getting that education and experience and then developing a team to help you be successful will take folks as far as they want to go.
I love that you just said that, because when people come to the 3-day, they're always like, why do you talk so much about mindset and how we need to push forward through obstacles and this, that? And I'm like, you don't understand. That is half the battle in this. You're going to want to quit more times than you're going to want to push forward. We have to address that. And once they get out into the field, they realize, oh, this is much more emotional and mindset than I realized. It is a huge feat to start this type of business. So I love that you said that. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, and a good book for folks if they want to read it, if they haven't. I think a lot of folks are familiar with Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. But a book that a lot of folks maybe haven't checked out is A Guide to Investing. And I think if folks just want a shortcut to learning how to build experience and to navigate on learning how to be a better investor and a business owner, that book can be a great resource for folks and a real shortcut to help them with that mindset and assembling the team.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that resource. I'm sure the listeners are going to go check it out. And thank you so much for your time today being here. You're going to have to tell Katie we say hi. And I just appreciate your knowledge and insight. I'm sure all of the listeners here today are excited to check out your care home out in Oklahoma City. And I just want to thank you one more time for sharing everything you have with us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
All right. If you liked this episode, make sure to share it with a friend and subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to the Assisted Living Network.